Morning everyone, my name is Audrey. I am stitchywitch42 here on FlossTube over on Instagram, and this is my channel about cross stitch, life, the universe, and everything. Today is Monday, the 2nd of October 2023. I thought I would pop on for a fairly short video because I've only got 3 things that I'm going to share today, and 2 of them are fully finished items that I think, well, I made them. I think they're kind of cool. What can I say? So, today is October 2nd. Surgery is scheduled October 10th. There was almost a delay, and I convinced the doctor not to delay it. So, surgery is scheduled for Tuesday, October 10th. 10 days shy of a full year from my appendix rupturing. I've had the lab works done, I've had the EKG done, I'm prepped, I work this week, and then I will be off from the 8th through the 24th, and I'm ready. I'm ready for that to be in the past. Alright, I have 3 projects to finish. Like I said, 2 of them are FFOs. One is a project that I forgot to tell you about when I did my last video because I forgot. So, I follow someone on Instagram called Witches Garden Crafts. And I admit I don't know what her name is, so I feel bad about that. But she posted a picture of a free pattern that you could get if you joined her Facebook group, which is Stitch Witchery by Witches Garden Crafts. And if you know me, you know I love the Addams Family. When I saw Cara Mia, I had to have it. So I went and I joined the group, downloaded the pattern. It's one color, 310 black, and I'm stitching it on white. And I posted a photo about a week or so ago in the group, and I said, designers be tricksy. Because if you look at this pattern, it looks very symmetrical. And I've learned the hard way that it's not. I caught it on this side that there's a couple of skipped stitches in this area, purposely skipped stitches in this area. And I thought that this row of leaves down here and this row of leaves up here were the same, and they are on this side. They're not on this side. Because who pays attention to patterns? Obviously not me. So I had taken this piece with me when I went up to the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit, and this is what I was stitching on Saturday morning. And I stitched this part down here. And when I got home, I unpicked this part down here and I restitched it because I had added a stitch. And I'm looking at the pattern and realized that one extra stitch was going to make a difference. So I unpicked it, I restitched it, I went up and I stitched the top part of it, and this is where I am at with Cara Mia. So, like I said, I stitched this part, I unpicked it because I had added 1 stitch back here. And then I came up here and I stitched this part, and I went back down and I was working on this part, and I looked at my pattern and it was like, something's not right. And like I said, I thought both this side and this side were mirrored. There is a very, very slight difference. Mine are mirrored, and it's not going to make any difference in the overall finish, so I left it. Believe me, there was lots and lots and lots of counting involved. But I really, really enjoy this. I'm having fun doing this part of it. The diagonal stitching here and here. And that's where there's the couple of missed stitches. The other part is, you see these stitches in here? The ones that look like the dots? This is another area that does not mirror over here. But I caught that. There's also supposed to be a couple of skipped stitches up here. Mine's not going to have that. But there you are. I am stitching it on, I think this is a 32 count even weave. My book with all my notes in it is upstairs, and Mark is sleeping right now. He's been doing night paving. So I'm trying to be quiet, which is why I'm recording in the kitchen. Trying to have as much space between him and me so he doesn't hear me talking and me keep him awake, because I want the man to be safe when he drives at night. So that's Cara Mia. That is the one that I stitched on at Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit and forgot to tell you anything about it in my last video. And then I had a finish from the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit. We had two fabulous designers there, Jody Rice from Satsuma Street and Tracy Horner from Ink Circles. This is the pattern that we got from Jody. This is called Turning Leaves, and it is gorgeous. And I told you this is not my color palette, but look at it on the Havana, and it is just so rich, so vibrant. So I started stitching this piece, and I had decided that I was going to do a center start, doing the 4 acorns in the center. Both Jody and Tracy did interviews when they were at the Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit. I actually missed Jody's interview, but I watched it on Anna, Stitch Roadie's videos. And I'm glad that I did, because she talked about the fact that the way she designed this pattern, there is a shadow. There is a dark shadow, and it's all on one side and not mirrored on the other side. So again, this is not a symmetrical pattern as far as the stitching goes. So I had to keep that in mind. What I did was I started in the center here, and I decided that I was going to stitch up to this corner here, and then I was going to work around. That's what I thought I was going to do. But I was stitching on it, and Thing came up with an idea. Thing said, why don't you make it into a needlebook? You see, when we did the Smalls Exchange up there, there were so many fabulous things that had been made for the Smalls Exchange, and there was a couple of different needlebooks which were fabulous. There was one that Cheryl had gotten, and it was stolen away from her by Robin, Lady Robin S. And after it was all over and done with, I went over to talk with Robin and to look at it, because it was gorgeous. If you watch Stitching with the Sisterlies, their video that they posted just last night, Cheryl shows the pattern that was used to stitch the front and the back of this needlebook, and it was stitched on perforated paper, which made it just more fabulous. But seeing that, I wanted to make a needlebook. So I decided that, like I said, I started here and I stitched up this way. And I was trying to keep track of how wide it was going to be. And I figured, what the heck, just go ahead, stitch that whole area of the design, and then figure out my dimensions later. So this is my finish. This is my little needle book. And I'm going to open it up here so you can see the whole stitched piece. I think this is absolutely gorgeous. I love these colors on this fabric, but it's not my color palette. But I think it looks fabulous here. So I wanted to make a needle book out of it. And I have never done one of these before, so I'm winging it here. Up at the Stitch Summit, there was a lot of stuff on the free tables, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I was able to snag 2 pieces of wool. And one of them, in particular, I thought would look great inside of this. Even though at the time, I didn't know I was going to do this. So I finished my stitch. I measured out how long and how wide I was going to make this. I cut it out. I cut a piece of batting out. I cut 2 pieces of wool, and then I put it together so that on the inside I have a pocket here both on the front and the back. So again, because this is from the designer at Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit, I wanted to put as many things into it as I could that were from the Stitch Summit. So I have this beautiful fob here. Autumnal colors. I'm pretty sure that this is from Melissa. Smalls _ squirrel _ stitching. Or is it stitching? Smalls _ stitching _ squirrel on Instagram. Inside, I have this pin. It says needles up here. This was given to me by somebody at the Stitch Summit. If you happen to be watching, please make a comment down below so that I can add your name to my book, because I would like to keep track of that. I added 6 pieces of batting in here to put my needles on. And I put little bulb pins here with leaf charms, again from Melissa. I have a little bulb pin here, and I'm actually waiting to get some paper crafting stuff. I'm waiting to get a clear embossing powder so that I can make some little tags to put on here to put the sizes of the needles that I have on the pages. And in the very back of it, in this pocket, I was at Hobby Lobby and I found this set of scissors. There, that works. And it had a sheath. And all I did is I put a bunch of glue on the front of the sheath, stuck it in behind the wool, and let it dry. And I have a really nice pocket back there that now holds my scissors. And I am so tickled with how this turned out. Now, when I was talking about the way Jody designed this, and she said she had the shadows on there, you see it more here. There's a darker brown on this edge, and this edge, and this edge, and they're not the same on both of them. I got this sewn together and I thought, well, what if I make this the front? And then I realized that I had already sewn it together, and that would have meant my scissors were upside down. So this is the front. Because, you know, mistakes are what I do. Personalizations are what I do. All right. Now, the finish that I am so absolutely pleased with and so tickled with, and one that has caused me so much frustration. When I got this year's copy of the Halloween Just Cross Stitch magazine, there are so many things in here that I would like to stitch. But the one that I knew I had to stitch right away was this one. This is the Witch's Pincushion. It is a Kim Beamish design. And I wish that I could show you the pattern, but I can't because the pattern is fine. I don't know what my issues were, but I had several issues. So rather than tell you all about my issues up front, I'm going to show you my finished piece. If you've seen it, I've already posted it on Instagram. This is my witch's hat pincushion. And we're going to get in there. And I just think that this is totally fabulous. But I had issues. So I'm looking at the pattern here, and again, like I said, I wish that I could show you the pattern, because I think all the issues are mine, have nothing to do with the pattern. You're supposed to stitch the cone of the hat and the brim of the hat. Looking at the pattern for the cone of the hat, you've got the top and you've got this edge, and they're not, what is it, 45 degrees? They're not. So when you come together and they're the same width, top and bottom, when it comes together, your piece should match up like this. I used a 28 count linen. The pattern calls for 28 count linen, but for some reason, my top edge was longer than my side edge was. So when after I had it all cut out and ready to start putting together, I realized that if I started at the top of the hat to sew this back seam up, one side was going to be longer than the other. So I decided to start at the base and sew up, and as you can see it's crooked. It's because I had to take gathering stitches to make it start here and end here and be even. So it's crooked. It's a witch's hat. It's okay if it's crooked. I know there's straight conical coned hats out there. Most witches' hats I've seen are crooked. Mine is crooked. So that was one issue that I had. The other issue that I had was the brim of the hat. And as you can see here, you can still see some of the linen. Again, looking at the pattern, it's not circular. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 8-sided on the pattern, but it looks like it's going to be a circle when it's stitched up. For some reason, mine turned out to be oblong. When I read the directions on how to put this together, you use 2 3-inch discs of mat board, one for the brim of the hat, and then one for the underside piece, which was also supposed to be stitched, but I didn't because I messed up some way somehow on the top piece and wasn't going to do that. When I got it stitched, it looked more oblong. Mark has a set of circle stencils, and I took his 3-inch circle stencil, and it wasn't going to fit on the top. Or it wouldn't fit over the disc. It wouldn't cover the whole disc. So I had already committed to making this. I had the cone stitched together. I had already cut out my fabric for this to gather around the 3-inch disc. And I realized that there was going to be a lot of fabric sticking out. So then I thought, I have to improvise. And I took that 3-inch disc and I put it down over the top of my stitching, and I actually drew a circle on my fabric. And then I decided to fill in with the stitches. So the top of this hat here was supposed to, the brim, was supposed to have 3 colors in it. 310, 37.99, and 413. I added 414 here on the edges in a couple of places because I figured if mine is going to be personalized, I want it to be obvious. So I added stitches around, but I still didn't cover the whole thing. And the reason I didn't cover the whole thing is because I was now having to stitch in hand. I had already cut my linen down. If I had realized, if my brain had acknowledged the fact that this wasn't going to cover the 3-inch disc, I would have thought of doing this before, and I could have then stitched it in my Q-snap, but I didn't, because I'm blonde. It's my story. Okay, so that was my second issue that I had with it. The third issue that I had with this is that, again, on the pattern, and it's a really good pattern, there was back stitching that you did here and along the brim of the hat. You use the back stitching to sew up the back, and then you use the back stitching around the brim of the hat to match up with the back stitching on the cone of the hat to the back stitching on the brim of the hat to sew them together. And when I tried doing that with the stitches that I had already put in, my cone was wider. Again, I don't know why I had issues with this pattern. If anybody else stitches it and doesn't have any issues with it, I would love to know that. I would also love to see it because I think that this is absolutely adorable. But I adjusted and I altered and I put it on there, and it's crooked, but I think it's fabulous. I had bought these spools. You get a package of 6 of them from Amazon. I put some bits and bobs on here that had come in my little box that I got from Chris Yoo. And this trim that I have on here, somebody sent it to me a couple of years ago, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I thought this was the perfect thing to put it on because of the autumnal colors. The finished piece in the magazine shows a bead on the top, so I stuck a counting pin in there with a little toadstool. Ginny, Ginny Hillman, came up to me at Pacific Northwest Stitch Summit and gave me this little bulb pin with this button on it and this teeny tiny little key here. She said she saved this button especially for me because it's made out of bone. Thank you. And then I stuck a couple of pins in it just because it's a pin cushion. Yes, I had issues with this piece. I think this is fabulous. I don't think that there's any problems with the pattern. I think whatever happened was me. I think this is fabulous. So I am so tickled with how this turned out. I am pleased with how this turned out. I am loving stitching on this piece. And those are what I've been working on. I am still trying to clean up my library after the Stitch Summit. I decided that I was going to go through and organize a bunch of the little bits and bobs that people had been gifting everybody all around the room. And I ended up creating a bigger mess up there. So maybe after Mark wakes up later on today, I'll get up there and go back to cleaning up my library. Anyway, I will see you all sometime after my surgery. I know that it's going to go just fine, and I know that I'm going to feel better. The day of my surgery is also 200 days until retirement. It's getting closer. I am loving the countdown. Anyway, until we meet again, my friends, live long and stitch on. Bye-bye.